Last time, our hero was trapped deep in Horde territory at merely level 19. You might recall the predicament of self-doubt and absolute fear of failure. But I pushed through it. Because I realized just how far I've come. When I started out, I had nothing. Now, I've turned up the graphic settings and I have a cape. And you happen to have come upon a glorious occasion. You see, it's time for my tuffle with the first major dungeon in our journey. Deadmines. Spend enough time in Azeroth and you learn to improvise, adapt, and overcome. In the situation you're witnessing, many would make the mistake of helping the fellow Alliance player. I, the intellectual, molded by countless deaths, knows that the only means to an end is getting gear, and lots of gear. Instead of risking it for the biscuit, I make sure to loot this rusty chest for any goods. 25 copper and a broken lock. I make off like a bandit. In this game, you gotta know when to be a hero and when to look out for number one. On the surface, Azeroth is adventurous and splendid, but in reality, it's a socio-political nightmare RP sandbox. You never know what foolish fuckery you might run into. You may in fact spontaneously combust. Now, the Horde gank was expected, but imagine my surprise when I rezzed the spirit healer just to be met by
Helcular's remains.
A mob so much stronger than me that I see a skull instead of its level. A mob who will chase you down and make you his bitch. You may be surrounded by Horde scum and have them grant you mercy if you wave back, just to get smacked in the back of the head by a troll 2 minutes later. This fucking psychopath just hit me a couple times and watched me get mauled by a wolf. And it is in fact not unusual to have an orc moonwalk on your corpse. As you can imagine, I grew weary of Ashenvale quickly. I took the Hearthstone back to Darnassus. Take note of the high-level spinning technique that my WoW GF taught me. By the way, she hasn't spoken to me in weeks. I wouldn't have long to dwell on it though, because before leaving Darnassus, I was swiftly disconnected, courtesy of Blizzard's patented gruesome servers. After the brief intermission, our journey to Westfall began. I sailed to Darkshore, and from there to Menethil Harbor. Along the way, I pondered life's greatest questions. Why does dual wielding give you a 19% mischance? Why did I choose Noggenfogger for the name instead of the server my friends play on? Why did I get invited to the Nogger Nations Guild? Why did I accept? Are robots gonna take all our jobs? How will we combat climate change, overpopulation, and deal with the threat of AI? When will China start World War III? Why does White Monster with rosé wine actually fucking bang? Boomer juice, by the way. Then I flew to Stormwind. And from Stormwind, I traveled on foot to Westfall. When I arrived at my final destination, Sentinel Hill... I might actually break my fucking monitor. Sentinel Hill.
You did it!
I have anger problems. I began a series of grueling tasks known as the Deadmines quest chain. Not difficult in the slightest, just fucking horrid. First I've gotta kill this guy who can be anywhere from here to here patrolling. Mind you, there's lots of people in this quest and you're more likely to run into his corpse. Then I travel halfway across the world to deliver a letter. There's literally a mailing system in this world, so I don't see why that would ever be necessary. By the way, it's 4 letters, not 1. And it's back and forth in different places. Follow that up with an escort mission, and you have the unholy trifecta of gruesome game mechanics. Now pay close attention, alright? 1:20 AM, I met Mike Miller and bought 40 loaves of bread. It was at this point that I was ready to bust down the Deadmines dungeon. Now the question is, how did I end up at 4:20 AM, still not having completed the dungeon, at a naked gnome twerk party of all places? Well, this is what happened. First we got a group together that seemed to have a decent shot. We had a tank, a healer, it was good times, happy vibes, and smiles all around. We started making our way into the Deadmines, just before the weekly realm restart, what I would consider to be our first crucial mistake. We decided to meet up again in half an hour. When we all logged on, our tank Glowin was missing, and a paladin offered to be our 5th. Without hesitation, I invited Fuck to the party. 2 minutes later, our tank came online and said that he was on the way. Our group was in disarray, unsure how to proceed and in need of leadership. They looked to me for guidance. I suggested a democratic vote, and to quote myself, I vote we just do it with the current party, cause I'm a bit of a cunt. This was our second crucial mistake. You see, Glowin was loyal and determined, strong but gentle. Fok, on the other hand, was an irredeemable bastard. He needed for the blue drop even though it wasn't an upgrade for him, got it, then proceeded to pull an entire room of mobs, get our whole party killed, and immediately leave us with no tank at 4 AM. This was the karma we got for turning our backs on Glowin. Now naturally, some would argue that I could have tanked, but I wanted to dual wield with a 19% miss chance, so you can see why that wasn't on the table. It was here late at night that Hellmistress and I got to know each other. We had a hell of a good time waiting for the rest of the party. Our Chad Warlock Ninpu sat down to enjoy the show, and he had but one thing to say. So who do we invite? Very good question. I pulled in the only alpha male in sight for a private show in the minecart. You gotta do what you gotta do to keep the party together at 4 AM, even if that means saving Azeroth with your ass. I knew I was killing it when he uttered, "Maximum comfy." Not long after, our gnome Avery overreached and presumed that he could take a front row seat. I immediately scolded him and told him to know his place. When he then rudely requested that Hellmistress danced for him up close, I immediately knew that we were gonna have a fucking problem here. We stripped him naked and made him dance for our amusement.
Hail to the night!
Admittedly, he was a pretty good jester, although that didn't stop Hellmistress from leaving due to the severe social misstep by the gnome scum. Luckily, she was easily replaceable. Then an hour passed, and we had yet to find a tank. We were collectively about to give up, but then Muffy appeared out of nowhere, as sent from the heavens. 5 AM, cock in hand, ready to rumble. We were gonna give Deadmines a third shot. What ensued was nothing less than perfection. We all knew this was the last run of the night, our final opportunity to not feel like we just wasted our lives to watch a gnome twerk. Then came the moment of pre-traumatic stress disorder, also known as anxiety, when we opened the door to the room we wiped in, which we then obliterated with calculated primal fucking hatred. The game actually has elements of genuine strategy at this point. Having played for over 50 hours, I realized the experience of standing and hitting has actually improved by a significant margin. I'd love to tell you a little about the lore of this dungeon and the Defias gang, but to be honest, I didn't pay attention, not even a little bit. These guys are also in Hearthstone though, so I reckon that's probably where the devs took inspiration from. Then we find gunpowder and bust down this door with a massive cannon.
You there! Check out that noise!
And that's when we hear Mr. Smite for the first time. Slowly but surely, we methodically take out all the things in the way of my goal, completing my first dungeon. I can taste it. When you walk up on Mr. Smite, you get ambushed. Now for a casual group of WoW enthusiasts, this part is actually rather difficult, but for a group of war-hardened fucking animals up at 5 AM, it really is benign and laughable. Notice the perfect coordination. I aggro the two mobs and the healer focuses on keeping me alive, whilst Muffy takes on the big guy. We make quick work of the two weaklings and then focus the full blunt force of our emotional instability on the Don, the big cheese, Mr. Smite, also canonically referred to as Mr. Worldwide.
Mr. Worldwide!
Now you're making me angry!
Now he's angry, so he pulls out the ultimate weapon, Smite's Hammer. Something he should have done from the beginning rather than right before dying, but I digress. Against all odds, the hammer actually fucking drops, and I can tell it's a massive stat upgrade for me. Now let me explain how item drops work in dungeons. You can either greed, need, or pass. If all 5 players greed, each of them roll a number, and the one with the highest number gets the drop. If any players need, then it's a roll between those players, because that takes priority. One by one, I saw all my comrades in good faith press greed and not need. There I stood, with the power in my hands. It was up to me. I'd never had a blue item before, and the choice was mine. It was so tempting, yet I recall a promise I made to myself a long time ago, that I would live a kind, humble life of self-reflection and morality. I press greed, and with absolute vengeance and fury, roll a 72 to receive Smite's Hammer. Now I'm not a salty loser, but I am one hell of a cunty winner. I make sure to inform the others that he who greeds as the 5th man has a good heart. As we make our way up to the final challenge, Edwin Van Cleef, actually it's at this very moment that the game starts playing Jornio's theme. I'm pleasantly surprised they licensed that into WoW Classic, but it definitely hypes you up for the final battle. After blowing him a kiss and waving at him, it's time to stop the fun time happy hour and enter go mode. Now I knew shit was going sideways when Muffy fell. When the mobs then started targeting our healer, I did the only sensible thing. Ignore it entirely and focus on the boss. I managed to take him down while our healer got slaughtered. But I'm an optimist. I can always see the positive side, like how the gnome scum fell shortly after. It was then up to me and our Chad Warlock, who actually, now that I look back at the footage, is a rogue and not a warlock. But I'm not doing it over, it's besides the point, whatever, fuck. It's up to me and Ninpu, the higher intellects of the group who dual-wield one-handed weapons with a 19% miss chance. And I can't think of any reason why our DPS would be inadequate. Surely the healer and tank are at fault for dying here. Finally, we prevail, just to see Edwin Van Queef drop a sick set chest piece. Ninpu selects Need, I select Need, Eliatra selects Need, and our brainlet gnome player selects Greed. Ninpu rolls a 10, Eliatra rolls a 69. Yours truly? Fucking 80! Boom! Real gamer hours! Ninpu says fuck my life and rage quits. And there I stood, entirely fulfilled, in pure pleasure, waiting for the others to return. Dare I say, chillin' like a villain. My comrades return and we agree to kill the Cookie Monster. However, I proceed to fall down and aggro all these mobs. The Boydem came to the rescue, but I know a losing battle when I see one. I make my escape down the only path available to me, and run for my fucking life. Being chased by goblins, bandits, and murlocs, I can't help but feel that I should have been the one to resurrect and walk 15 minutes to my corpse, and they should have been the ones to escape. But of course, there's no need to cry over spilled milk. In World of Warcraft, the day-night cycle is the same as real time, and as I exit the dungeon, I see the sun rising. See? It's not all that different from real life. I hand in the Deadmines quest and go repair my armor, then take a small detour to the Ironforge Weapons Master so that we can skank out with this new hammer. By the way, using a weapon class for the first time gives the phrase, a swing and a miss, a whole new meaning. After testing out Smite's hammer, I went back to the place that made me realize World of Warcraft is indeed a fucker's game. Ashenvale, the Los Angeles of Azeroth, and from there I journeyed into uncharted territory, the Stone Talon Mountains. It was time for the Horde shitheads to pay the price of being on the wrong side of history. I had a blast murdering these fucking losers time and time again. There's nothing quite like seeing a man die, here we go again, and walk all the way to his corpse just to get obliterated again, forcing them to reset the spirit healer, breaking all their equipment by 25%, and providing them with an unfortunate resurrection sickness that makes them 75% weaker for 10 minutes. That is the real payoff in WoW. You get to make other people waste so much fucking time, and in a manner that's intensely aggravating. It's fucking sick. Unfortunately for me, I would at this point come to learn that what comes around goes around. The players I'd been tormenting ended up grouping up and spreading the word of my misdeeds. Considering I was the only Alliance player in this area, I now went through retribution of the highest caliber. When leaving the area after numerous deaths, I thought that my peril for the night was over. God, was I wrong. I went into a cursed land known as the Charred Vale, just to complete one simple quest. There are these 4 mobs, and I gotta kill 7 of each. Simple enough, right? Except for the fact that the Charred Vale is packed to the brim with Horde players. So the experience goes a bit like this. Find and kill one of the mobs, and then I die, courtesy of some cunt Horde player. Got it. Then I walk all the way to my corpse, and repeat. Sometimes the experience is actually a bit different and varied, because I'll also just die to the mobs. I should have just given up, but for whatever reason, I was hell-bent on finishing this godforsaken fucking quest. This guy fucking ate my corpse. But World of Warcraft has really diverse gameplay, you know? You never know if you're gonna die to the Horde gank, or the mobs, or the very Blizzard servers themselves. It took me an hour and a half. I went through this bullshit until 4 AM, at which point I left the Stone Talon Mountains to never return. Now, you might recall a certain apathy regarding the fact that I can only fight one mob at once, but after 70 hours of game time, you can do this. Notice how I level up right before dying to the last Murloc. I consider that one of my more precise calculations. Interestingly, I had to play for over 70 hours before being able to take on more than one enemy at a time. And I can't do that very often considering Retaliation is on a half-hour cooldown. And you might still just fucking die. This is a fucker's game. Yet, it's a fucker's game with one redeeming quality. This gnome wanted to buy an axe off me for 1 gold. He then realizes mid-trade that he doesn't have 1 gold at all. I tell him I'll hold on to the axe for him until he gets the money, on the premise that he takes all his clothes off and fills out the only appropriate function in society for a gnome, dancing naked for my amusement. Did I ever end up selling him the axe?